So, wanted to talk a little bit more about maturity. I had a request, so I figured I'd go over this in a little bit different way, especially with respect to men versus women. So, stay tuned. So, there is a difference in maturity between men and women. And this is because maturity is about measuring a change from an, we'll say, unfinished state to a finished state. Well, that finished state has to be defined. It has to have some way to know how far along that process you are. And that process is different for men and for women, which is why a lot of people say women mature first, right? They mature earlier than men. That is very true. There's a reason for that. We could talk about that maybe in a different video. If you want to see that video, comment below and let me know. But we have different end maturities, right? There's a different end sense. And many women are more mature than most men, for example. That's an unusual sort of thing to see. Women have a different purpose from men because it turns out, I don't know if anybody's told you this, but they can have children, and men actually cannot actually do this. Now, I do know that in certain circles, we'll just call them the circles of the people who are really slow. There's a bit of debate about this. There's no debate about this. Okay. There's people that are really slow and kind of stupid. They may have a debate. The stupid people will debate anything. They'll debate whether or not the sun rises in the east or gravity is real or any number of other things. I'm not going to have a debate with stupid people. I have things to do. You should also not debate stupid people. You should move on with your life. So, men and women have different purposes. Women can have babies. Men cannot. Men are good protectors. Women are relatively frail by any standard, by the way. You're never going to find a difference. So maturity is defined in terms of an end result. And since men and women are different and they have different facilities, they have different maturities. The best way to think about this different purpose, this different end result, is final cause. Make final cause great again, or telos, if you will, or some people call it telos. I like telos because I like tea. When you know your final cause, when you know your telos, when you understand that telos, that final cause, when you feel your final cause, then you can manifest it. Now, I use those three things deliberately and in concert in one another, in connection with another, in relationship to one another, on purpose. Very important. So, if maturity, as I mentioned in my previous video on that topic, you can see it here, is all about the regulation of emotion, then what this means is that you cannot manifest your final cause or your telos until and unless two things: you are controlling your emotions. Feeling your final cause isn't enough. Like, oh, I feel like I should have children, or I feel like I should, be married, or I feel like there should be somebody in my life that I can protect or care for, or whatever. It's not enough. You can't necessarily enact it. Sort of knowing or feeling your final cause, with the knowing, it's not enough. It's not enough because you still have to do it. It doesn't do anything in the world. So you can know it and feel it. That's not helping you. You have to be able to manifest it. You have to be able to enact it. And your feelings aren't merely your emotions. Your emotions can overwhelm your feelings in the moment. We typically call those passions, by the way. There are other names, but I like passions the best, and it's my channel, so that's what I'm going to use. You need help to align your actions with your feelings through your knowledge, through what you've derived. And you have to get in touch with the way to manifest these things. Because if you can't enact, if you can't take an action, if you can't manifest your final cause, you can't be mature. Maturity is in the action of manifesting or trying to manifest your final cause. So you have to know it, you have to understand it, you have to feel it, and you have to be able to enact it. Now, any one of those things can be disrupted by your emotions. Emotions can disrupt anything. And that's one of the problems. As Jordan Peterson says, you don't know what you're up to. Well, because your emotions can come along and bulldoze whatever it is you're up to, and you really don't have that much rational say in it. That's why it's famously in quote philosophical, although I object to the use of the term, circles, especially in sci-fi, there's this great battle between rationality and emotion, because emotion is keeping you from being rational. Emotion is keeping you from understanding, right? Oh, I killed him in anger. What, didn't you understand you were going to jail? Not when the emotion came up. It's keeping you from your feelings. Oh, I feel like I should be a good person. Yeah, but you just killed somebody in anger. Are you a good person? Because, right? So you can see a way in which your emotions override everything. And so maturity is all about that emotional control. And so it requires aligning your actions in the world. And how do you control your actions? Well, through habits, through rote, mundane, doing things over and over again. Sorry, very unsexy, unpopular answer, I know, but also the answer. And there aren't alternatives, and there aren't going to be ever. Just to let you know, how can I say it's been a few thousand years? If there were going to be another thing that worked, it would be well understood and known and talked about by now. The reason why it's not is because it's not there. It's not that hard. It's not that hard. A few thousand years, it's good bet. Doesn't exist. So you need to align your actions with your feelings through your knowledge and enact, manifest your telos. It's not enough to know it. It's not enough to feel it. It's not enough to understand it. You have to have all three held together in action, in activity. That is what causes you to mature. Now, it could be easily argued, and of course, the data sort of points to this. If data is important to you, and maybe it shouldn't be, but maybe you need some, right? That women have a stronger reason or telos to mature. It's more biologically obvious and imperative to them than it is to men. That might be why they mature better, they mature more on average, and they mature faster. That might come at a serious cost. Maybe they're more prone to their emotions, for example. It may be that men don't need to be as mature, because the less mature you are, the more risks you can take. And someone needs to take the risks, and someone needs to be safe, right? Now, those aren't going to be universals across, we'll say, individual instances, but I wasn't talking about individual instances. So if you do that, you're being kind of stupid. Don't do that. I'm talking about generalities. Don't confuse the general for the specific. This is a well-known problem that everybody's doing lately. I don't know why. Must be the latest fashion. It's at least as popular as cocaine in the 80s for some reason. Let's not do that, though, right? We already made that mistake with cocaine. We don't need to make it with confusing general for specific cases. So when you understand that all of these things have to come together, all of these things has to be, you have to understand, you have to know, and you have to feel your telos, your final cause, and then you have to enact it by controlling your emotions. And once you do that, your life improves immediately. It also simplifies because you're not as scattered. One of the problems with uncontrolled emotions is that they will automatically cause high anxiety, because you'll be trying to do too many things, especially at once, but just too many things. And when you're spreading yourself out, trying to do too many things, you're not one person. And what does that cause? It causes an identity crisis, because you're not one thing. And it's not. Identity is not about you and what you feel, or whatever. Identity is basically prescribed or given to you from outside. Is that the outside can't determine where you are and what you are because you're bouncing around too much and you're spread too thin. And so you're not really anywhere in particular. So you can't be granted an identity. And you can argue, well, I can have multiple ideas. Okay, sure. Keep doing that trick, even though it hasn't been working for decades. Because we just see around us that trick hasn't been working for decades. Or you could take the hint and go, oh, I need to sort of settle down and sort of figure it out and focus on one thing. That is why people like Jocko Willink are so popular, or even Jordan Peterson or Peter Attia or Joe Rogan. Oh, they seem to have their stuff together. I'm going to follow them. It's like, okay, well, at least you're gathering yourself into some kind of an identity and trying to differentiate yourself from your spread out self, right? So that makes sense. And then you look more mature, at least in the short term, and fair enough, right? But it's also why that doesn't work, right? We break apart. We go from, being Peterson fans to being some other fan, to being some other fan, to being some, right, over and over again, because those aren't good enough fits for our final cause, our telos. So you need to be in alignment with your telos and realize that following Jocko Willink or Jordan Peterson or whomever else is A, incomplete, and B, only an implementation method for a small part of your telos. It has to be placed within that larger idea, right? To fight the domicide that happens and keep you relatively together so that you're not spread out all over the place. People who are spread out are always immature because the spreading out means you're more prone to your emotions automatically. And it may not manifest all at once. It may not manifest constantly. It may bounce between those two, right? So maybe you're fine, and then you have a complete fit and a mental breakdown. That happens to people, right? Or you're constantly sort of interrupting people. You're constantly going from thought to thought. You're constantly like cracking jokes or trying to get one in on the conversation, or what. These are signs that you're spread out and anxious, and that's not good for you. You need to kind of focus, and focusing is no fun, and people want answers real quick, and most of the answers after a certain point in your life come very slowly over years or even decades. And people don't like that because they're used to the video game mentality where, I solved that video game in 22 hours. I just stayed up until I solved it. Okay, but most of the world you can't do that with. So that's why video games contribute to the immaturity crisis that we're having, roughly speaking, because they do give you this false sense of how quickly things can be accomplished. We'll say important things outside of yourself, because video games seem important and they seem outside of yourself, even though they're actually kind of neither. And hopefully someday I'll get around to doing more video game reality things. I only have this one video game video for now, so you can start there and maybe I'll get more later. So look, I hope this additional exploration of maturity was helpful to you. If it was, leave a comment. If it wasn't, also leave a comment. If you want to see more, leave a comment. That's how this video got here. And I can try more. These topics are very hard to talk about, and it takes quite a bit of effort on my part to get them out there. So also, if you want to donate, there's a donation button. You can buy me a coffee. That would be most helpful. YouTube is not going to make me enough money to do anything, including buying a coffee. So I appreciate any support you can give me. And listen, I really appreciate your time and attention.